Hello, and welcome to Transformative Travel. I'm your host, Gary White, and we're here in Évora, Portugal with my wife and co-host, Ellen Aviva. Hi, Ellen.
Hi.
Let's get you at least the same size as me.
Okay, hi.
We're in the midst of the heat wave here, so Ellen is indoors again today. A little too hot to be outside. We hope everything works okay indoors. We'll see how it goes. So today we have the second conversation with Peggy Moore. Ellen, can you give us a rundown on Peggy?
Yes, for those of you who haven't seen the first episode, which is recorded and available on the channel, Peggy Moore has led a life of transformative inner and outer travel, and she thrives on leading others on similar sacred journeys. For many years, Peggy has listened to the still, small voice within, and guidance has led her to explore metaphysics, world religions, indigenous spiritual practices, including the pre-Celtic, Old Irish ways with an Irish medicine woman. Peggy's sensitivities to earth energies and her heart's calling has led her toward her transformational spiritual journeys to mounds, standing stones, temples, and sacred sites in Ireland, Scotland, Wales, England, Egypt, and the US. Peggy teaches courses and webinars online on meditation, Celtic spirituality, Egyptian sacred sites, comparative religion, and other spiritual growth courses. She also leads people on transformative journeys to powerful places, including Ireland and Egypt, where she is building a retreat center. In fact, she plans to be in Egypt in August. Oh, lucky Peggy. Her website is www.motherearthsacredtours.net. Sign up on her website for her newsletter. And starting July 26th, Peggy is going to teach a 4-week online course called Welcoming the Egyptian Goddesses into Our Lives. Details about the course and her tours are on her website. And I know we have a banner that shows it if you couldn't catch it from what I said. Well, in our first salon with Peggy a few weeks ago, we talked about transformative travel, labyrinths, Ireland, and turning any journey into a sacred journey. In this salon, we will focus on Egypt and the tantalizing possible connection between ancient Ireland and ancient Egypt, and how that impacts Peggy's spirituality. We will have time for Q&A at the end of the salon, but if you have questions during our conversation, post them in the app or YouTube, and we will try to answer them as they come up. And remember, notes posted on comments on the Facebook page will not be visible to us. And also remember, this will be recorded. Peggy has offered to begin our salon with an invocation to create intention and sacred space. So let's get started. I'm so excited. Welcome, Peggy.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. This is a wonderful experience, and I'm so happy to be with the two of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I will start the session with the calling of the directions and calling the ancestors in to guide us on our journey. And I always start with the center, with the connection to the divine, to the oneness. And so I say, thank you, divine ones, divine light, for coming in to help us, to guide us on this day, to move us through the journey of understanding and spiritual growth. And I turn to the east and I ask the ancestors of the east to lead us with the illumination, the light of the east, showing us the way. And we thank you. We thank the ancestors of all the directions for guiding us, for leading us. And we step into the element of the air as we look toward the east to guide us along our pathway. And with that light from the east, we turn to the south, the direction of the element of fire and the direction of love and joy, laughter, music, dance, and rhythm. Help us, ancestors of the South, to take this into our hearts and live our lives in joy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I turn to the West. The West is the direction of introspection, where the water reaches out to us to take us deeper into our spiritual journey so that we may be refreshed and uplifted and alive as we step into that darkness of the West so that we may go into introspection and listen. So ancestors, take us by the hand and take us into the darkness, showing us the way as we go along our journeys of life and our journeys of travel. Thank you, ancestors of the West. And to the north, in the north stands the challenge to take the knowledge from the West and turn it to wisdom consciousness in the north. And so we are challenged to stand up, to be who we truly are as we walk the path of the north. And from there we come full circle back into the center of the divine, and once again saying thank you, thank you, thank you. And I say Ashi, Aho, Amen, blessed be, Hamdulillah. And so it is. Thank you.
Oh, and so it is. Thank you, Peggy. Thank you so much for setting the sacred space for this conversation about sacred topics. Thank you. Okay.
So
Well,
Egypt.
Egypt, where I've always wanted to go, always felt drawn since I was in 3rd grade, but have never managed to get there. So now that you're there, who knows? Maybe it'll be an opportunity for me.
We almost
to
got there
go.
once.
We almost got there once, yeah. And then our residency permits in Spain were expiring and we couldn't go. So
Yeah.
that's how it was. But when the time is right,
Maybe
they say the
so.
teacher shows up and maybe the tour guide shows up. So we can hope. Okay.
Well, I've always wanted to go to Egypt, and it took me many years to get there, but it has been seriously transformational from the time I stepped off the plane and onto the ground. And there are stories I could go on for hours about the connections and the things that happened. But I want to start with this one. This is Hatshepsut's temple. She was one of the few female pharaohs, but the most well known of those. And this is a temple built in her honor. Just to tell you a little of the sacred geometry, this is built literally into the mountain. And so it's a very powerful place to be. And what you're looking at is part of a group that I was on tour with. We were a sacred circle dance tour. And we were not allowed to dance at these sacred sites, but we were allowed to stand in a circle of silence. And so we are there holding hands, holding the energy, holding it in our hearts and pouring peace out into the world. And the security guard who was there at the site, he was so moved by what we were doing that he too came into the circle. And if you can see, he's the one in white that's kind of in the middle on the far side. that's, he certainly didn't have to do that, but he saw that. I think one of the significant things about the Egyptian people is that so many of them read energy and understand who people are at a different level from just walking around out here in this world. And he saw us and knew that we were not just ordinary tourists, that we were tourists on a spiritual journey, and came to join us there.
Oh, what a moving story.
Yes.
Wow.
And here it is,
Oh,
the same circle or a different group?
same group. This is the Red Pyramid. This is, I think it's southeast of Giza, where the pyramids that everyone knows about are located. And this one, with another group, we were inside the Red Pyramid and had astounding experiences energetically inside the pyramid, but even outside the pyramid. This was such an astounding place to be. And again, the guards came, told us we could not dance, but we could stand in the circle. The guards did not join us here, but they stood there looking pleasant, not unhappy with us being there, But one of the experiences I had at this particular spot, I won't spend too long telling too many stories, but I had worked with one of the other people on the tour who is a longtime friend of mine. And she was having some issues that had to do with her son and her grandchildren, and very worried about it. And I said on the tour, just let Isis be with you and let Isis bring you comfort. And while we were standing there, we were in this circle maybe 30 minutes. And during the time that we were standing there, I saw this huge black cloud. Now, it doesn't rain in Egypt very often, but this black cloud, and actually you can see just the touch of it if you look to the
right
screen. Yeah. There's kind of a darkness that you might think, oh, that's smog or something. No, that was actually a cloud coming toward the Red Pyramid. And it felt very uncomfortable, like there was something not good, not healthy about this. And I kept looking at it, kept sending it peace and harmony. And meanwhile, what I didn't know is that my friend Maggie, who was also in the circle, was having this awakening having to do with Isis and letting go of her fear and turning it all over to Isis. Just as that cloud came up to, because it was, before it stopped, it was much higher, almost to the top of the pyramid. And just as it reached almost the pinnacle, the cloud dissipated. And what I think happened is that just as Maggie was having that experience, the darkness, the fear was coming, and she dissipated it because she let go the fear and opened to Isis.
I'm sure it's a magical place.
Yeah.
And I'm also sure that we have many more slides than we can cover at this pace. And I love this pace because I think it's the stories that make this important.
I'll slow down a little. I mean, I'll leave out some of the stories, but those two I thought were pretty important too.
That was wonderful. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe we'll leave out some slides, but we'll see how it goes. So we're going to the Isis temple.
Yes, this is the Temple of Philae, which was built in honor of Isis, and the priests and priestesses of Isis were here. There were other temples dedicated to her, but this one in particular is the most well-known and just an amazing place. In terms of sacred geometry, it was built at a particular location, but when the dam was filled to block up the water to stop the flooding of the Nile, this temple was in the pathway of the lake to, and it would have been underground. They allowed architects from several different countries to come and take this temple apart and rebuild it on an island so that it would not be underwater. And even though it's not in its original place on the land with the original ley lines and water lines and all the things that are
They
there,
would have built it too.
it is just the energy there is just as astounding as it is at other temples that are in their original spot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Next, we have some actual photos of Isis. So you have an image to go with these wonderful stories.
Yeah, this is Isis and her son Horus. This is the Isis, Osiris, and Horus legend is the virgin birth story, very similar to Mary and Jesus' story. The significant thing that I want to point out about this one is that thing on her head is actually the royal seat. It's the pharaoh's and the queen's chair, and it's on her head to indicate that she is the mother of all pharaohs, the mother of all of Egypt. And she doesn't always have this in every statue, but it's the significant identification for Isis, wearing the royal seat on her head.
Because sometimes she has the
Solar
moon,
disc.
the
It's a
solar with
and
the horns.
and the cow
And
horns.
just as an aside, wait, just 1 second, back to that one, honey, just for a second. There's also, this is a total aside, so I won't go long at all, but there's a whole possibility that some of the Black Madonna statues that you find throughout, especially throughout France and other countries, but mostly France, were brought back during the Crusades from the Middle East, from Egypt, and that they were actually originally statues of Isis, that because that's also the virgin birth and the baby's on her lap, and that they were then transformed or used as a basis for some of the Black Madonna statues that we find. Okay, next.
Yeah, this is another picture of Isis, and this is the solar disk and the cow horns. The cow horns have to do with the milk and the plenty and the nourishment of life. She's in this picture, she's holding the hand of Nefertari, who is one of the most famous queens. And Nefertari has on her head that right around the top there with that little, that's the vulture head and the vulture wings, because the vulture is the symbol of the virgin birth. The vulture, female vulture, flies through the sky with her eggs ready to give birth. I mean, this is the time when she is fertile and ready. And apparently the male vulture flies through, releases his semen that she catches. I don't know. But that's
all in midair, huh?
That's, yes, in midair. And so that's the symbolism for the vulture being the animal symbol of the virgin birth. And so whenever you see a crown like Nefertari has with those kinds of feathers, those are feathers or wings of the vulture. And so this is Isis holding Nefertari's hand, and the quote from the hieroglyphs that go with this are, "Come, Nefertari, I will teach you the mysteries of the wisdom," or some translation to that effect. But she's the protector and the teacher for Nefertari, and that's what she gives to us to call us to the study of the spiritual aspect of life.
And in your course, you'll be working with that.
Yes, yes. I absolutely do. I spend an entire week on Isis, and but it's, you know, all of the gods and goddesses in that Egyptian line are said to be aspects of the divine.
Mhm.
And so I look at them through the lens of archetypes and look at the aspects that each of them present and what that means to us as we go through our journey, and how we can use their wisdom and their guidance to help us through that journey, just as she took Nefertari through the journey.
Wonderful. Next, we have another goddess. We have Hathor.
Ah, Hathor and Isis are both regarded as mother goddesses. And, you know, whenever you hear these legends of gods and goddesses throughout, regardless of the culture, the stories change depending on the timeline. And many of the stories about Isis are the same stories about Hathor and the reverse of that. But Hathor has her own stories as well, and she there are many temples, even like the where we saw Hatshepsut's gigantic temple. Off to the side is a small Hathor temple, though that's not her primary one. Dendara was her primary, but there are small ones of her all over the country, or there were some are still there. But she is the goddess of love and the goddess of nourishment, the goddess of nurturing and bringing us into the fold of the love of the divine. And
You
so
sent us some slides with a woman standing inside of Hathor Temple.
yes.
Is that Dendara?
No, that's the temple next to Hatshepsut's temple.
Why don't we
Yeah.
look at those now? Gary, can you pull those up? They're
Yeah.
18 and 19. Yeah, there we go.
So this is, you know, as temples go, this one is very small. I think there are only maybe 3 rooms to this one. And this is my friend Maggie. We traveled to Egypt together, and she lives nearby me now. So she was very taken with this place, and the others had come in, and all the people that we were with had left and gone on over to Hatshepsut's. And we just stayed behind. It just felt so significant. And I said, Maggie, let me get your picture in here. And I took the picture. And what you see in this photograph are these little white circles. There's a very large one on one of the statues up near the head. And then there are lots of other smaller ones. When
They
you
seem to have circles inside of circles, almost like they're
and
mandalas.
actually, I don't think I sent you a picture of where I enlarged it, but there's actually some sort of shape in that. It's nothing that I've seen before, nothing that I can identify, but these are orbs that have their own shape and their own symbols. I have a friend from Germany who was at the Red Sea in Egypt and took a photograph of an orb. It's very similar to this largest one that's here. And she enlarged it and sent it to me. And she said, what symbol is this? I said, nothing I've ever seen before, except it's similar to what's in this temple. So it's, is there another slide? I don't
There should
remember.
be another one. Yeah, we have 2.
Yeah.
There you go.
This is, so down near the bottom is where Maggie was standing, and this is up toward the ceiling. And because of the black on the ceiling, you can see those orbs even more. I didn't see them when I took these pictures. I just knew that this place felt like some place where I wanted to stay forever. And later, when we looked at the pictures, there they were, these orbs all around.
Yeah, we've taken pictures at sacred sites. I don't see them, and then you look at the the photo and you go, oh my gosh. You know,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's to do with the lens refraction and stuff, but other times it just definitely is not.
Exactly. It
yeah.
certainly can be lens reflection sometimes, but these were not.
Yeah. Okay, let's go back to where we were. Let's see. The next one we had scheduled was meditating at the pyramid, and that's followed by orbs at the pyramid.
Oh,
So
okay.
should we just,
Yeah.
and then we can come back. Okay, the next one, honey.
Yeah.
There you go. Because
So this one, this is actually the same pyramid where I was meditating, but it's the other side of that pyramid. And I was there at the base, and I looked up, and there's this man and his children, and it was just such a precious scene. But I saw this light moving, and I got my camera out and started taking pictures, and I took several slides of this one. And that tiny little greenish blue light was there beside the children. It was above the children. It was further up on the pyramid at one point, but it moved around. It came closer to that rock that you see at the very front of the picture at one point. But it was there. It was very much, you know, if I'd been a human able to do that, I would have said that I was enthralled with these children and their father. And so I don't know if that's what was happening, or if it was there just giving this protection and lovely energy to that little family group.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, back to the previous one, honey, where she's meditating in front of the same pyramid.
Yeah, this is the other side of that pyramid. The guide I was with, I had a woman guide and a driver, and the woman guide was a friend of mine, and the driver knew that I was a meditation teacher, and that this was a spiritual journey for me. And so we got to this pyramid, and you know, where the father and the children were, and we spent some time there, and we're walking on around. We got to this side, and he says, "This is where you need to meditate. No one will come down this side." And so he took me, we climbed across some rocks to get there, and spread my coat out on the sand and sat there to meditate. And he took my picture while I was there.
Wow.
Yeah. But it was just incredible. I've meditated inside a wire pyramid here in the States, not in Egypt. And it was most definitely a transformative experience sitting in the pyramid. But this was just like, I mean, and I wasn't there very long. You know, I didn't go into some long half-hour meditation. It's like I sat down and I do this process of opening the chakras in my hands as I start meditation, and then drop my hands to the side, as you see in that picture. And it was just like instant. I was in deep meditation just immediately.
Wow. And I mean, I'll put a plug in. People who go on your tours will have an opportunity to have their own experiences at these kinds of places with your guidance and teaching.
Yes. The tours, we did a tour last January, just before the pandemic began. And we had meditation every day. We had a few minutes of yoga every day, and not just physical yoga. We do yoga that is, I think, what is the true basis of yoga, with that connection to the spiritual side of what yoga is meant to be. And then the meditation, and you know, we had all kinds of experiences in lots of different places. Yeah.
Okay, next photo. Beautiful picture of the pyramids. We just included that because it's so beautiful. I mean, how could you not want to go there and see that?
Yeah, I was in a lodge. I mean, close enough that I could hear at night when they do a light show at the pyramids, and there's this, Broadway style microphone projecting whatever they're doing in this story that they're telling, and I could hear it from the lodge where I was staying, and this was taken from the balcony where I stayed.
Wow.
It's just that's
Wow.
sunset in Giza.
Wow. Next, that's you being, we would say gobsmacked, if I may use that sort of British expression, just gobsmacked, when you're just kind of blown away by what you're seeing and the experience.
Absolutely. Just astounded. And this was not my first trip into a temple. I mean, this wasn't even my first trip to Egypt, but it's just like, no matter how many I've been in, and there are temples that I walk in, and they are wonderful places, and I'll take lots of pictures like people do. And other temples I go into, and I am, as you said, gobsmacked. It's like I feel like I should be, bowing down on the earth or something. They're just like, the energy sometimes is just overwhelming. It's so incredibly beautiful and just rich with this connection to the divine.
Next is Sekhmet next is Habu Temple, Sekhmet and Isis.
This is Habu Temple, and this one, I mean, it's not the only temple that has these kinds of incredible carvings, but I thought this was an exceptionally beautiful one that would just give you an idea of what this is the column. This is not even the wall. This is a column within the temple. And it's completely filled from the ceiling to the floor with row after row of these carvings. And some of them are images like this, and others are hieroglyphic stories that tell the journey of the particular gods or goddesses and pharaohs and all of this. So,
and these are old, like 3,000 years old?
This is to 5,000.
5,000.
And as you can see, there's still some color.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Next, because we have Sekhmet on that column, who is the lion-headed feline goddess. And here she is again.
And here she is. I believe there are more statues of Sekhmet than any other goddess in Egypt, or something like that. If not the most, there are a lot. This one, this is at Habu Temple again, and she has the solar disk as well as the cobra over her head in this one, but her head is that of a lion. And there are many stories about what she does, but she is a protector goddess, a warrior goddess, but with that warrior goddess, the protector of women and children. So she, yes, and I won't go through all the long stories with her, but I do in my course. I talk at length about the legends, and there's some legends about her that are quite negative, that I believe and many others believe are negative because we're in the age of patriarchy, and so they take this strong warrior female and turn her into a vicious character, where her male counterparts are not regarded as vicious. So, yeah, but no male god would want to stand up to Sekhmet.
And the next one is also Sekhmet.
This one is another. This is in Karnak Temple, and these are the people on one of the tours I was on. And this is off in Karnak is this complex of many temples, and this is a very small temple off to the side that's not just generally open to the public. A an Egyptian guide has to get you into this. You don't just wander in by yourself. And so we were taking no lights in here. This is like cell phone light, because there are no lights even in the room. And they took us in here, and we were allowed to actually touch the statue. And there's one, I don't think I sent it to you because it doesn't show Sekhmet very well, but there's one of me with my head laying against her shoulder. I mean, I just felt like I was in the arms of the mother goddess next to her. It was quite transformational. And, and most people who are on a tour, well, depending on if it's just a lightweight tourist group, they won't get in here. But any group that's on a more spiritual experience, their guides will get them into this particular chamber, and it's quite an experience.
Wow. Okay, next, another manifestation, the Sphinx.
Yes,
the Sphinx
so
Alley.
this is in Luxor, and there are two major temple complexes. There's Luxor Temple and Karnak Temple, and they are, I don't know, a couple of miles apart. They're in the same city. But what the pharaohs did was create what they call an alley of sphinxes. And so these sphinxes would have run down both sides of this pathway, this alley, between the two temples. So we're talking a couple of miles.
Wow.
And different pharaohs the sphinxes all pretty much look the same, but the head is different on each one. Hatshepsut, I believe this is Hatshepsut's row of sphinxes. There's another one that has a row of Hathor's head, and on, different pictures, not pictures, but sculptures on the head of these pharaohs. And so it's the link between these two major complexes with a dedication to the pharaoh of the age, of the time.
Are the heads always female?
Not always. No. Some of them are, I don't recall seeing one that actually had a pharaoh's head other than Hatshepsut's. But there are there's a baboon looking sphinx, and the cow sphinx, and some others like that. And of course, all of these sphinxes have not been found. But the ones that have been found, they line them up and change as they go along. There's as much under the sand in Egypt as there is above the sand today.
We've been watching a new program on Smithsonian called Tomb Hunters, and it's all about the Egyptian archaeologists digging at Saqqara and what they're finding. And it's, as you say, I mean, there's so much more under the sand than has ever been discovered.
Yes, yes.
The next one is Luxor, and that's followed by the Sphinx. Okay,
yeah. So this one was that was built by Ramses II in honor of, I forget who they are, but three different deities who were, they called them visiting deities. Apparently they would just only come and go, and there were no priests and priestesses to those particular gods. But the carvings on this is just so amazing, so amazing. There are bees in every temple. There are bees. There are the hawk or the falcon that's representative of Horus, and just so many more things. And so this is just a sample of what some of the temples look like on the outside.
And next we come to the Sphinx.
Ah, yes, the Sphinx.
Greatly debated in terms of how old he, she, it is, and who built it, and whose face it has or had. And
There, you can find so many different stories about who believes what. But there very clearly is water damage somewhere near. I mean, you can't tell from this picture, but this is as large as the pyramids. I mean, it's
Wow.
people. This little barrier that you see that's right out in front of it.
Mhm.
That barrier is at least 4 feet high, and
Oh, wow.
it's not up against it. I mean, the Sphinx is still another 20, 30 yards from there. And you know, a person would be just minuscule up against this. I mean, the person, you see where the eye is on the Sphinx there? A person would be about that big, about
Oh,
that.
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's just incredible, and it's way much longer than you can see in this picture. It's very, very large, but the water damage that's near the base, there was no water here 5,000 years ago. The water goes back to maybe 10,000, if not 12,000 years ago.
I think Robert Schock, who's a geologist at Boston University, I think that's right, has done a lot of research on that.
Mhm.
I
And
think we lost her at that moment.
Yep. But apparently there are a number of chambers beneath the Sphinx as well that the Egyptian government will no longer let people into. At one point they did.
Well, those people have gotten in before?
In the past, maybe 20 years ago, some Egyptologists and archaeologists were occasionally given permission. The story that I've read is like maybe 2 were given
Gary, we're
permission.
both.
And then they were prohibited from going in again. But the story is that there are quite a few chambers beneath the Sphinx, and that possibly there is a tunnel that connects to the pyramids.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry we lost Ellen.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm
Yes.
back in the studio. If you want to, there we go. I don't know what happened.
We
I was
lost
listening to you guys avidly, and I'm also looking at the time because we now want to. This was the last in the Egyptian
Oh
series.
my, we're really breaking up.
And we now want to go to Ireland still?
Yeah, we can move on to the next slide, and maybe Ellen can pop back in.
Okay. All right. The next slide, we saw the orbs before, so let's go on to this slide.
So where we're moving here is that transition to the connection between Ireland and Egypt. I'm certainly not the only person who has given thought to this. There actually is an organization of Egyptologists who and Irish archaeologists, I believe, who follow this. Occasionally, I've been able to get notes from the write-up from their conferences. But this is a picture of what's called the Tuatha, 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 who are regarded as the gods and goddesses of Ireland. And this picture is, I don't know how old it is. It's in the public domain, but it's supposed to be the best rendition that we have of them. They were called the Shining Ones. They're also called the She. They're called the Fairies. They have many different names, but they were sent from someplace to Ireland as the workers for the good to overcome the evil is the storyline, because there were people, groups of people, two in particular groups of people in Ireland who were really mistreating the land and the people. And so the Tuatha were sent there to basically clean it up, to bring the light back into Ireland. So go ahead to the next slide. And
the next slide is actually a map, and Ellen now has joined me.
And I'm looking at the time, so if nobody has, we have 15 minutes if nobody has questions.
okay.
Just so you know, to get through. Yeah.
So this is just a brief historical point on how they got to Ireland. So this map is showing you they came from the Ukraine and the Russia area, as well as from the Middle East. Those are the red lines and arrows across there. About 7,500 years ago, farming was started in the Middle East, and over time, people traveled across Europe toward England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. And the Egyptian line supposedly came out by boat across the Mediterranean Sea underneath Iberia, which is today Spain and Portugal, out into the water and then up to Ireland, Scotland, and England. So,
and I see a yellow line directly from Spain.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the yellow line. They may have actually stopped in Spain. Part of the legend is that the Celts, who were also called at that point the Milesians, were the first to come to Ireland, besides these other whatever sort of pirates that had come in. And it's possible that the Celts were from the Middle East originally. And so they would have come from Iberia north to Ireland and Wales and Scotland. So that's kind of the geographic line to it. And then what's the next picture show us? Oh, this is the picture of Toth or Toth. It's pronounced Thoth, so Toth is probably closer, but it's hard to say Toth. But Toth was the scribe, and he's said to have, done all of the writing of history. And there are these incredible, he's attributed with dozens of books that were written and things. And so the legend is that on a temple wall that is no longer standing, but on a temple wall in Egypt, there was, as you can see at the top of this picture, those hieroglyphs. So there's a hieroglyphic story about Thoth's crossing. And that story from the hieroglyphs matches the legends and the tales in Ireland of the coming of the Tuatha. And even if you look at the language, the Tuatha has different variations phonetically that translate to Thoth's crossing, Thoth's boat, Thoth's people, things like that. And so there's if you listen to the sound and not the writing of it, because this was in hieroglyphs that was translated to Arabic, that was translated to English. But there's that link that's in there. But the story is just phenomenal. The people, the Tuatha, came to Ireland in these ships in this huge dark cloud of smoke. And for 3 days, there were the smoke and the clouds. And the people came to the land and fought this group of people, two different groups of people that were damaging the land. And it's the same story that's on the hieroglyph walls. I was just fascinated the first time I heard the two stories, and yeah.
Next we have a baboon, and we're running out of time, so.
Yeah. So the baboon is the symbol for Toth. And there was a skeleton, or at least a skull, of a baboon that was found in Ireland. This is not an animal that was common in Ireland. And so again, it's part of the information that I've read where they validate that the two-a-day definitely were connected to Egypt. And so that's the reason for this one. But you can see the hieroglyphic writing at the bottom of this picture where the hands come down. There's some hieroglyphs that are in there.
And this is in Egypt.
Mm-hmm.
So Tara, Mound of Hostages.
Yes, another link. The Mound of Hostages, long story on the name, but this is a mound that's at Tara, which was the center of all of the kings and the provinces coming together, and royals were buried in this mound. And when this was excavated in the 1950s and 60s, along with the royals was this body that had of a young man who had a necklace of beads, and the beads are like the fascient beads that are created in Egypt. Now, Egypt's not the only place that created them, and these are not those ancient ones. These are modern day ones. But
beads are the sort of the bluish, greenish,
mm-hmm.
clay.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and carved. And so what they did verify is that those beads, the carving, the shape, the way the beads were carved on this necklace matched those fascient beads from Egypt. And so they assumed that it was just trade, that they didn't in the past believe that people traveled that far by water, but then they said, okay, well, this must be by trade. But eventually, quite a few years later, they compared the skull of this young man and determined that he was probably actually of Egyptian origin, not Irish, but Egyptian, and buried there with the royals on the mound. Another link are the legends of the goddesses. The goddess Boann is the goddess of the river Boyne, and Hathor is the cow goddess. Both of these are known as cow goddesses, and the cow image is because of the milk. And the milk is what makes up the stars in the Milky Way. I mean, that's the really short version of the legend. But the Milky Way is reflected into the river, and that's the legend of the Nile and the legend of the Boyne, that they reflect the flow of the Milky Way. And then you have these two goddesses that are called cow goddesses. So again, we've got another link in there with that history.
So now we're back to your logo.
Yes.
Remaining 5 or 6 minutes to talk about your weaving together of the Irish and Egyptian spirituality, regardless of the facticity of, what's known or not known and whatever else, but just how that how you have enlivened that and woven that together.
Yeah, for me, yes, it's legend, and there may or may not be some valid information that's out there that links it. But for me, they very clearly are linked. My experiences, I've been to, quite a few countries, and my experience in Ireland and my experience in Egypt were so very similar in feeling like I had come home. It was, both of them are homeland for me just as much as my home here in Western North Carolina. And so I took the triskel, the triple spiral of the Celtic symbol. And so that's my Celtic aspect. And then I took the Eye of Horus, which is known as the all-seeing eye, and lots of legends and stories about the Eye of Horus, but interlaid the Eye of Horus on top of the triple spiral blending the two together, weaving the two into my spiritual story, my spiritual journey. And that's where I live. I live between North Carolina, Ireland, and Egypt in my heart.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think in the first time you called in the energies of the directions, you called them in with the names of the goddesses and that you associate with the different.
Yes.
Different
yes, I do. And there are some sources that put a goddess here or there and things, but my calling of the directions is related to the Celtic spirit wheel in terms of where I acknowledge the elements. And for me, I just look at the energy of the particular goddesses and gods and the energy of the directions and the elements, and that's where they come into play for me. So the East, of course, is Ra, which is the sun, but Sekhmet was also regarded as a sun goddess as well. So she and Ra are there, and then Lu in the Celtic line is the sun god, and Anya is the sun goddess. And so I very often in the East call those four gods and goddesses. And then in the South, Basset and Hathor are the goddesses of music and love and pleasure and dance and rhythm. And then in the Celtic line, there's Bridget, who is the goddess of creativity and of music. And if it's created, then it's by the influence of Bridget. And then Oren Moore is in the Celtic legend. Oren Moore was to have created the earth with the sound and the rhythm and the harmony of music, that the music, the vibration created the earth. So that's the South connection. And the West is both the Morrigan and Sekhmet are warrior goddesses who are also protectors of the women and children. And in the North, it's Danu, the mother goddess of the Tuhadei, along with Ma'at, who is the goddess of rhythm, harmony, balance, justice. And both of them are about challenging us to stand up as warriors of the heart.
And with that, it looks like we're getting close.
She still has the North, right?
Oh.
You still have the North?
The North is Ma'at and Danu.
I lost that because we were... So you have found a way to meld this all together.
Mm-hmm.
Your spiritual practice.
Yes.
Is wonderfully powerful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I know you'll be sharing a lot with people on your courses and the new course about welcoming the goddesses into your life. And people, we are out of time, so we're going to put up the banners. Do you have anything else you'd like to say? Anything last minute words you'd like to say before we go to the banners? Well,
I'm so grateful that you've had me on the program. I'm just, this is not just my heart, where my home is Egypt and Ireland, but it's just my spiritual journey is the process of this. And so I hope that people can use this and others that you interview to really grasp the reality of that transformational travel, and it doesn't have to be to a foreign country. It can be to the park down the street if you look for the spiritual connections as you take that journey.
But if you can get to Egypt and Ireland, but you're absolutely right.
Someday we'll get there.
Yeah. I mean, we have a Temple of Diana three minutes from our apartment here. And we walk up there and it's like, oh, wow. Just sit here in that energy. Not everybody has a Temple of Diana, a Roman Temple of Diana in their backyard practically. But as you say, you can build a labyrinth. You can talk to a tree. You can set the intention when you go on a trip that you will visit sacred places and that it will be a journey of transformation. Well, thank you so much for your time and your energy and your wisdom. And well, I look forward to seeing you again. I hope in
Yes.
Egypt.
Thank
Yes.
you. I look forward to seeing the two of you again. Thank you.
Now we have to go.
We can keep
Sorry.
talking. What is this? He's such a time master here. Okay.
Right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.